Hello everyone, my name is Katie McIntyre. I'm an author, a school counselor, and a licensed professional counselor. And I wrote the book, How Frederick Found His Light. Today, I find it really important to be able to share this story with you. I wrote this story so that children could have a better idea and understanding about the feelings of sadness and depression. I'm now going to read How Frederick Found His Light. When Frederick was born, he had a beautiful light that shone brightly inside of him, as we all do. It is the light of happiness, love, and uniqueness. His light glowed in the brightest yellows and the cheeriest pinks. His light beamed for all those around him to see. To his parents, Frederick was the most wonderful little boy to have ever been brought into this world. When he laughed and smiled, it was magical, and his light shone brightly for all those around him to see. As he grew, so did the light inside of him. He found much wonder and awe in the world around him. He explored, played, joked, and laughed. This made everyone around him smile to see the joy that was in his heart. Frederick believed in himself. He knew for certain that he could do anything that he put his mind to. He occupied his time with sports, chess, band, and art. Everything that he did seemed magnificent to him. Others noticed his accomplishments as well. He became the chess club president, was voted first chair in band for the trumpet section, won awards for his art, and was voted most valuable player on his baseball team. And his light shone out brightly for all to see. Yet, as he grew older, something happened. Frederick's light started to fade. It didn't happen all at once, like the flip of a light switch. Instead, it was slow and steady, like the sun setting on a warm summer day. Frederick had started to doubt himself. When he was little, he was good at everything. Now there wasn't a single thing that he could think of that he was exceptional at. It didn't help that those around him seemed to doubt him too. When he tried to join the basketball team, his teammates told him that he was too short. When he had to play a solo in band, he got so nervous that he would always make a mistake. Whenever this happened, he could hear some of the other kids whispering and laughing behind him. Even on the days when the other kids in his class were nice to him, he couldn't see past his own sadness. Each day, the light within him grew softer and softer. When Frederick's parents tried to tell him how wonderful he was, he still couldn't see past his own sadness. He couldn't see any glimmer of the light that had shone so brightly within him before. They showed Frederick a beautiful drawing that he made, and he would say, "There's not enough detail in it." They would remind him that he won his last 2 tournaments in chess, and he would say, "The kids were all younger than me." Frederick found something negative to say about every positive thing that his parents pointed out to him. When the light within someone starts to go out, all the happiness, love within that light starts to fade too. They are replaced by other feelings like sadness, anger, and loneliness. Frederick started to feel all of these more than he wanted to. There were times when Frederick's sadness was so strong that he didn't want to do anything or go anywhere. All he wanted to do was curl up under his covers and sleep. On other days when Frederick's light was swallowed up with darkness, all he could do was sit in his room and cry. On these days, the tears flowed so heavily that Frederick thought that he might be able to fill an entire ocean with his tears. Frederick's parents were worried. They couldn't see the light inside of Frederick that had been so bright before. They wanted to help him. They decided to take him to a counselor. Frederick's parents told him that a counselor is someone who he can talk to about his feelings, someone who can help him. At first, Frederick wasn't sure if he wanted to go. However, Frederick didn't like the way that he was feeling. He wanted to feel better. When Frederick first stepped into his counselor's office, he couldn't help but smile. She said, "Hi, Frederick. My name is Mrs. Lilly. I'm so excited to meet you." Mrs. Lilly was very nice. Frederick's nervousness quickly faded. Looking around, Frederick noticed that she had boxes of every art supply you could imagine, not to mention the books, stacks of them. Mrs. Lily also had games, every type of game you could think of, and a sand tray that sat in the center of the room. Frederick knew that this was the place for him. Mrs. Lily talked to Frederick about how he was feeling about himself. She talked to Frederick about the light inside of him. She told him that when our light starts to go out, we need to do special things to take care of ourselves so that our light can shine brightly again. At the end of the day, Mrs. Lily gave Frederick a special journal that she made him. It had his name stamped on the front in his favorite color, green. This made Frederick smile. Mrs. Lily told Frederick that he could use his journal anytime he wanted to write down or draw how he was feeling. Frederick began meeting with Mrs. Lily every week. Mrs. Lily helped him to find ways to let go of his anger and sadness. Mrs. Lily also taught him how to pay more attention to his feelings so that he could have more control over them. She showed him how to take deep breaths in and out when he felt himself feeling sad or upset. They played games and read stories. However, he had never played these games before. They were special. One game that he played with Mrs. Lily, she asked him to list the things that he was most proud of about himself. Frederick had trouble coming up with things that he was proud of. Mrs. Lily told Frederick that she was proud of him for coming to visit her and for working so hard to help his light shine through. This made Frederick beam. Frederick's favorite thing to do with Mrs. Lily was to make art. Through his art, he was able to see how talented and special he really was. He learned that when he drew, he felt better about himself, and that this was also a way for him to get out his feelings out. He also learned that writing in his journal at night helped him to express his feelings in a safe way. On the cover where his name once stood alone in his favorite shade of green, he had added a collage of all his favorite things. Little by little, Mrs. Lily was able to help Frederick see that the light inside of him was never gone. It was just hiding, overshadowed by the sadness and anger that he felt inside. Just like an eclipse darkens the bright moon in the sky for a brief time. Frederick learned to like himself for who he was. He started to believe in himself again. Frederick could see that he didn't have to be perfect at everything, because no one is. He could feel good about himself for the things that make him special. Frederick still had days where his light would fade a little, but he now had some ways to help himself feel better. Frederick felt the light begin to return, just as the sun returns as it rises so brilliantly in the morning sky. Now, when Frederick paints, his art reflects all the spectacular colors of the light within himself, the light that was always there. I wanted to be able to share the story of Frederick with you today because I want every single one of you to remember that no matter how sad or down or depressed you might be feeling, every single one of us has a beautiful, amazing light inside of us. We might not be able to feel it right now, and we might feel like it's gone, but it isn't. It is just maybe hiding right now. And we need to do different things to help our light shine out brightly for ourselves and for other people. So I want you to think about all the things that Frederick did in the book to help his light shine through. He wrote in his journal, he made art, he learned some deep breathing, and he met with a counselor. All of us have different things that might help us. It might not be exactly the things that helped Frederick, but there are so many wonderful things that we can do to help our light shine out brightly again. And I hope all of you find the time to be able to give yourself that gift of finding your light again. Lastly, I just want to say a few things to you about the story of how Frederick found his light. You may have noticed all these beautiful illustrations throughout the story. They were done by my dear and talented friend, Dan Romans. He really did a great job of taking the words that I wrote and putting them into beautiful pictures for all of you. So thank you, Dan. Also, you might notice within the story that there are different drawings that Frederick did. All of these drawings were done by my son Ivan when he was in first grade. And so it's pretty neat for him to be able to say that he is an illustrator, a published illustrator. So that is pretty cool too. If you want to be able to find the story of Frederick for purchase, you can go to my publisher YouthLight's website, youthlight.com. Thank you so much for listening to the story, and I hope it brings you some inspiration to be able to find your light and help those around you find their lights and let them all shine brightly.